Chapter 16:11. Sister, Master probably hasn't eaten yet. Why don't you go to the kitchen and let them know first? Leng Hua's gentle voice came, making Hui Lang's voice stuck in his throat, and he stared blankly. Okay. Leng Shuang responded and then moved away. Leng Hua looked at Hui Lang with a smile and asked, "What were you talking about just now?" Nothing much. But you, boy, your body seems to be a lot stronger than before. I haven't practiced for a long time. Why don't we go and practice? Hui Lang patted Leng Hua's shoulder and asked with a smile. Practice? Leng Hua looked at him with a gentle and harmless smile on his face. Yes, it's a good opportunity to test your skills and see if you've improved recently. Is this the way to test my skills? As Leng Hua spoke, his body suddenly moved, his feet hooked, and his hands clasped Hui Lang's hands, turned him around and threw him out. Bang. Okay. Hui Lang fell heavily to the ground with a loud bang. He lay on the ground with his eyes wide open and held his breath. You little brat. Why didn't you give me a warning before you attacked? Do you know that this is a sneak attack? Yingyi looked at Leng Hua with some surprise. Just now, his feet moved in an instant, and his hands and lower body cooperated to throw Hui Lang to the ground in an instant. That speed and strength really opened his eyes. This is not a sneak attack. I did ask. I asked if it was like this. Leng Hua looked at Hui Lang with a harmless and gentle smile. Okay. I was careless. Hui Lang could only swallow this loss. He knew in his heart that this brat must have done this because he didn't like him teasing his sister. He was magnanimous and didn't want to argue with him. The people inside heard the commotion outside, but they just smiled and ignored it. They sat opposite each other and talked about the things they had encountered recently. Finally, Fengjiu took out the medicine. Mother, this is the antidote. Hurry up and take it. After taking the antidote pill, the residual poison in your body will seep out from your pores. Furthermore, no poison will have any effect on you for the next 10 years. In other words, this is not only an antidote, but also a medicinal pill that can make me immune to any kind of poison for 10 years. Shangguan Wanrong was somewhat astonished. What grade of medicinal pill is this? How can it be so magical? This is a 6th level upper grade antidote pill. Other than the 2 300-year-old antidotes as the main ingredients, I have also added more than 10 antidotes. Moreover, although this pill is only a 6th level pill, it has already formed a pill spirit. Hurry up and take a look. Fengjiu poured the pill into his hand and handed it to her. Shangguan Wanrong took it and looked at it. She couldn't help but be shocked and asked in shock, Xiaojiu, this was made by you? I made it. She nodded. You can actually refine this kind of medicinal pill? Your talent in alchemy is really unbelievable. I'm afraid that even the sect master of the Danyang sect can't refine this kind of medicinal pill. She still felt somewhat incredulous when she held this kind of medicinal pill in her hand. She was also an alchemist, so she naturally knew how rare this kind of medicinal pill was. However, her daughter could actually refine it. She wasn't even 20 years old and already had such high talent. It was really unbelievable. Chapter 16:12. Fengjiu handed the pill to her and said, Mother, take it when you go back to your room. It will help you expel the toxins from your body. Okay, then I'll go back to my room first. Shangguan Wanrong took the pill and went back. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu also stood up and walked out. Outside the courtyard, Fengjiu looked at Shangguan Wanrong and asked, Are you tired? Do you want to rest? No need. Aren't you going to see your brother? I'll go with you. Xianyuan Mose said as he took her hand and walked out. On the other side, Guan Shilin and Du Fan rushed back after receiving the message from Leng Hua. As soon as they entered, Leng Hua smiled and said to them, Master is in the hall. Did Xianyuan come back with Xiaojiu? Guan Shilin asked as he walked. Leng Hua nodded. Yes, Yama Lord is also inside. They've already seen Madam. So Guan Shilin strode inside. Du Fan and Leng Hua followed behind him. Xiaojiu, you're back? Did everything go well on the way? Guan Shilin asked with a bright smile as soon as he stepped through the door. Who knew that Fengjiu, who was sitting in the middle of the hall, didn't look too good. Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting next to her, was sipping his tea and pretending not to see anything. Seeing this, he felt a little strange and asked, Xiaojiu, what's wrong? Did something happen? Brother, you're too reckless. Fengjiu said angrily and stared at him angrily. How could you sneak into the Danyang sect alone to assassinate the sect leader of the Danyang sect? If anything happens to you, what do you want me to do? Hearing this, Guan Shilin knew that he was in the wrong and made her worry, so he smiled awkwardly. It's actually not that difficult and I'm here, aren't I? Look, I'm not missing an arm or a leg. He patted his arms and kicked his legs to show her that his limbs were intact and that he was not injured at all. "You'll regret it when you get hurt," she said angrily. "Aren't you going to tell us what happened? Didn't the Danyang sect realize it was you?" Hearing this, Guanxilin smiled confidently and said, "Xiao Jiu, you underestimate your brother. Do you think I've wasted all these years? If I couldn't even assassinate someone, how could I have survived until now?" At this point he puffed out his chest and smiled. "Do you know that I, your brother, am already quite famous in the mercenary world? One person is more than enough." Hearing this, Fengjiu didn't know whether to be angry or laugh. She was naturally happy that he was outstanding, but when she knew that he would do such dangerous things for her, she was angry and worried. If something happened to him, how could she be at ease? Shenyuan Mose put down his teacup and glanced at Guanxilin, then said to Fengjiu, "It's okay, he did it out of good intentions. Don't blame him." "I'm not blaming him, I'm just worried about him," Fengjiu said, then looked at Guanxilin and said, "Brother, you're not allowed to do such things again. If you really want to do it, you have to tell me first and let me ask someone to help you. You can't keep me in the dark." Okay, there won't be a next time. Don't worry." Guanxilin nodded, then looked at the two and asked, "You didn't encounter any more assassins on your way, right? Was it peaceful?" Chapter 16:13. Other than that assassination attempt, they did not encounter any other assassination attempts. However, it was not very peaceful on the way back. While they were talking, they suddenly heard a knock on the door. The people in the hall were slightly surprised. Seeing that everyone was here, they were a little surprised. Who else would come besides them? "I'll go take a look," Lung Hua said as he walked out. The hall was not far from the door, so the sound of knocking naturally came from outside. When Lung Hua opened the door and saw two strangers standing outside, he was slightly surprised and asked, "Who are you looking for?" "We're disciples of the Danyang sect. We're looking for—" Before Luo Heng could finish his sentence, Qin Dao pulled him aside and finished his sentence. "I'm Qin Dao and he's Luo Heng. We're here to look for Fengjiu." Hearing this, Lung Hua's eyes moved slightly. He glanced at the two of them and said, "Please wait a moment." With that he closed the door again. Looking at the closed door, Luo Heng's eyes widened. "Why did he lock us out? That's too rude." Qin Dao glanced at him and said, "Just wait. I'm not in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry?" "How can I not be in a hurry? We've been out for so long and asked around for so long before we found this place. We don't even know if she's here." Luo Heng muttered and said, "Moreover, the sect leader is dead. The sect must be in chaos now. If we really can't find her, I think it's better for us to go back." "No, this must be the place," Qin Dao said with certainty. Hearing this, Luo Heng could only stand outside and wait. Originally, his master had told them to remind Fengjiu of her safety after they found her. However, now that the sect leader was dead, the danger should be gone, right? Now that they met again, he did not know what to say. Inside, the people who were talking stopped and looked at Lung Hua when they saw him enter alone. "Master, two people from the Danyang sect are outside. They're called Qin Dao and Luo Heng. They say they want to see you." When Fengjiu first heard that they were from the Danyang sect, he thought that they were from the Danyang sect. However, when he heard that it was Qin Dao and Luo Heng, he was stunned for a moment before saying in realization, "It's them. Let them in. I know him." "Yes," Lung Hua responded, then turned and walked out. "Could it be that the people of the Danyang sect knew that I killed their sect master and came looking for me?" Guanxilin said, worried that he would cause trouble for her. "I won't." Fengjiu smiled and said, "These two are my friends in the Danyang sect. I don't think they're here for that." Seeing this, Guanxilin didn't say anything else. He sat in the hall and drank his tea, waiting for the two to arrive. Not long after, under the lead of Lung Hua, two men walked in. "Fengjiu, you're really here." Luo Heng was so surprised to see her that he even raised his voice. Qin Dao still looked casual. When he saw Fengjiu in red, he reached out to stroke his mustache and looked at the man in black sitting next to Fengjiu. TSK, what a coincidence. Not only did he see Fengjiu, but he also saw the Yama Lord of Hell's palace. Last time he was wearing a mask. This time he wasn't wearing a mask. So this was what he looked like. He was much more handsome and younger than he had imagined. Chapter 16:14. "Qin Dao, did you see anything?" She looked at him teasingly. Seeing that he was in good spirits, it seemed that he had returned to being the confident Qin Dao of the past after his legs recovered. "I thought that the master of Yandian would be an old man or at least a middle-aged uncle. I didn't expect him to be so young, even younger than me." Qin Dao stroked his mustache as he spoke. Feng Jiu's lips twitched when he heard that. Even Xinyuan Mo's, who was drinking tea, choked on his tea when he heard what Feng Jiu said. He coughed softly and glanced at the people below. Feng Jiu looked at him speechlessly and asked, "Why is it an old man? At the very least, you know that I'm not even 20 years old yet. How could a young and beautiful woman like me take a fancy to an old man?" That's why I said it was a surprise. I didn't expect him to be so young. His eyes swept toward Xinyuan Mo's again. Seeing his imposing manner, he couldn't help but think to himself, I'm afraid that this person isn't just the Yama Lord of Yandian. He must have some other identity that others don't know. Luo Heng, on the other hand, was a little restrained because everyone here was stronger than him, especially Feng Jiu and the black-robed man on the main seat. Their powerful pressure and the aura of a superior made him not dare to breathe loudly. Hearing Qin Dao fearlessly say these words in front of the black-robed man, he couldn't help but move to his side and tug on his sleeve. Unexpectedly, Qin Dao's face was filled with impatience as he asked, "Why do you keep tugging on my sleeve?" When the people in the hall saw this, a smile appeared on their faces. These two people were really interesting. "Stop talking, do you want to die?" Luo Heng glared, then said to Fengjiu and Xinyuan Mo's embarrassedly, "He's like this. If Fengjiu knows, he doesn't mean any harm." "Alright, don't be so restrained. Lung Shuang has prepared some food and wine. Let's go and have a drink?" She looked at the two of them and said. Hearing this, Qin Dao immediately said, "Sure. We couldn't eat or sleep well while looking for you. Now that we're here, we have to be the host." Thus, Fengjiu asked Lung Shuang to prepare the food and wine, and the group moved to the side hall. After more than 10 dishes were served, Xinyuan Mo's, Fengjiu, Guanxilin, Qin Dao, and Luo Heng sat down. Everyone else except for Lung Shuang, who poured wine for them. The rest. After drinking a round of wine, Fengjiu asked, "You said you've been looking for me all the way? What's the matter?" Luo Heng and Qin Dao looked at each other. After a pause, Qin Dao said, "Actually, it's meaningless to talk about this now." "What do you mean?" She raised her eyebrows. "The reason we came down the mountain to look for you was actually because of Duan Mubai's orders. He ordered us to come down the mountain to look for you." Qin Dao then told her the whole story. He told her why they were here, why they came down, and the recent news about the sect. Fengjiu was silent for a while. She didn't expect Duan Mubai to ask them to remind her. "You're too late. She was ambushed a month ago. It was an assassination attempt by 4 powerful fighters of the fairy realm. Fortunately, she was lucky. Otherwise, Chapter 16-15. The two of them were silent. They had asked around on their way here, and naturally they had also heard about this incident. They really did not expect it to be true. Moreover, it was an assassination attempt led by 4 fairy realm masters and dozens of people. Fengjiu was really lucky not to have died. "Alright, this matter is already over. Let's not talk about it anymore. It's rare that we're all here today, so let's have a good drink." She raised her glass and toasted the two of them. "This is a toast to the two of you. Thank you for telling me about this." "Please." The two of them raised their wine cups and drank it in one gulp. As Fengjiu talked about the topic, the dining table gradually became lively. Xinyuan Mo's did not speak much. He sat next to Fengjiu, and when he saw her drinking too much, he would say a few words of advice and put some food in her bowl. Fengjiu's smile when she looked back at him, and the deep affection and trust in her eyes also gave people an indescribable feeling in their hearts. This was the first time Qin Dao and Luo Heng saw the two of them interact. They used to be very familiar with Fengjiu when they were in the faction, but they had never seen her show such an expression and gaze. The two of them interacted so naturally and calmly, as if they were an old married couple who had known each other for many years. There was no need for too many words between them. A look, a smile, and an action was enough to replace everything else. The kind of tacit understanding that did not need to be said made them envious. If they could be like them in life, meeting a partner who knew and loved each other so well, what more could they ask for? Qin Dao and Luo Heng stayed there. Especially since they drank too much, when Leng Hua helped them to rest, they couldn't tell which direction was north, south, east, and west. They slept until the next morning. In the early morning of the next day, Shengguan Wanrong had been adjusting her qi since yesterday. Layers of black toxins seeped out of her pores. She asked Lung Shuang to prepare hot water for her to take a bath. Then she changed her clothes and walked out of the room. Perhaps it was because the daughter she missed so much had returned, or perhaps it was because the poison in her body had been cleared. She felt refreshed. Thus, she went to the kitchen early in the morning to prepare breakfast for everyone. Although there was a cook in the courtyard, she felt guilty when she thought about how she had not cooked a meal for her daughter for so many years and had to run around for her. She knew that her daughter liked good food and her cooking skills were not bad, so she wanted to make breakfast for everyone. Lung Shuang, who knew that she was going to cook, came to her side and said, "Madam, let me help you." "Okay, then help me. I haven't cooked for a long time, so I'm afraid I'm a little rusty." As Shangguan Wanrong spoke, she entered the kitchen with Lung Shuang. However, when she saw that there was not much meat and vegetables in the kitchen, she said to Lung Shuang, "It's still early. Xiao Jiao and the others won't get up so soon. Accompany me to go grocery shopping." "All right." Lung Shuang nodded and walked forward with her. When they were about to go out to buy groceries, they saw Guan Shilin preparing to practice martial arts in the front yard. "Godmother? What are you doing so early in the morning?" Guan Shilin walked forward and asked in surprise. Seeing that it was him, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and said, "I want to make breakfast for everyone. There isn't enough food in the kitchen, so I asked Lung Shuang to accompany me to buy groceries." "Grocery shopping? Okay, I'll go with you," he said, intending to go out with them. Chapter 16:16. "It's okay, Godmother. I can help you carry your things. Let's go." He took the lead and walked to the outer courtyard to open the door for them. In fact, he was worried about the two of them going out. Lung Shuang didn't disguise himself, and his cold face was very eye-catching. His godmother's appearance was also very gentle and beautiful. He was still worried about letting the two of them go out. It was better to go with them in case something happened and he couldn't explain to Xiao Jiao. Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and let him go. When the three of them left the courtyard and walked on the street, she realized that it was the right decision to let Guan Shilin follow them. The people on the street occasionally looked at her and Lung Shuang with amazement, and their gazes followed them all the way. Some stared at them and didn't look at the road and bumped into the people in front of them. Some even wanted to go closer, but after seeing Guan Shilin behind them, they didn't dare to go forward and could only watch from afar. Shangguan Wanrong secretly shook her head at this. She rarely went out and actually forgot about this man's bad nature of liking beauty. Under Guan Shilin's escort, they went to the market and bought everything they wanted to buy and went back. After sending them back to the courtyard, Guan Shilin went back to the front yard to practice his martial arts, while Shangguan Wanrong and Lung Shuang started to get busy in the kitchen. When Fengjiu woke up and found out that her mother and Lung Shuang were making breakfast in the kitchen, she washed up and went straight to the kitchen. Before she even stepped into the kitchen, she smelled the fragrance and couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Wow, it smells so good. What delicious food are you making? I'm dying of thirst." She smiled as she leaned forward with her eyes squinted. "Master." Lung Shuang called out with a smile and stepped back to let her come closer. "Xiao Jiao is awake? You came just in time. We just made some food here. Come and have a taste." Shangguan Wanrong said and let her taste. Hearing this, Fengjiu hurriedly went forward. "It's nothing. Why would you need a taste test? You're looking for me." Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong couldn't help but chuckle. She reached out and pinched her cheeks. "Who exactly do you take after this greedy look? If I don't look like my mother, then I definitely look like my father." She smiled and said matter-of-factly, "And I also think it's like your father." Shangguan Wanrong nodded in agreement and picked up a small steamed bun for her to eat. "How is it? How's the taste?" When the small steamed bun entered his mouth, Fengjiu could not help but ask, "Mother, did you really make this steamed bun? The culinary skills are too good, it's delicious." "Really? It's good that you like it. There are a few other dishes that aren't ready yet, but these side dishes are ready. Come and have a taste." She then brought Fengjiu to the side and let her taste the side dishes one by one. Seeing her satisfied expression and hearing her praise, Shangguan Wanrong's heart was very happy and satisfied. She looked forward to the day when the family would be reunited. When that time came, she would definitely go into the kitchen every day and make delicious food for her daughter to make up for what she owed her all these years. When breakfast was served, Shangguan Wanrong asked Lung Hua to call people over to eat breakfast. When everyone arrived one after another, Qin Dao and Luo Heng saw Shangguan Wanrong appear and cried out in alarm as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 16:17. Shangguan Wanrong looked at the two of them in surprise. She did not really remember who they were, but since they could call her martial aunt Shangguan, they should be from the Danyang sect. Fengjiu slapped her forehead. "Oh right, I forgot to tell you." She looked at Qin Dao and Luo Heng embarrassedly and said apologetically, "I should have told you earlier. This is my mother." "What?" Luo Heng looked at Fengjiu in shock, then looked at Shangguan Wanrong. He found it hard to believe. Fengjiu was actually Martial Aunt Shangguan's daughter? Heavens, what kind of relationship was this? When Qindao heard this, he suddenly understood. So Shangguan Wanrong was Fengjiu's mother? If that was the case, then all these things made sense. Why did Fengjiu sneak into the Danyang sect to become an odd-job disciple, and why did he cause all these trouble in the sect? Most likely Shangguan Wanrong had something to do with it, and Duan Mubai should know the reason. Otherwise, he would not have asked them to inform Fengjiu to be careful of an assassination attempt after Fengjiu killed his master. He was not clear about the twists and turns in this matter, but he knew that Fengjiu would never kill someone for no reason. The three young peak master must have done something extremely overboard. Otherwise, it was impossible that even his disciple would not stand on his side. Mother, this is Qindao and this is Luo Heng. You should have seen them before, but you probably forgot about them. Fengjiu introduced them as she walked to Qindao and Luo Heng's side and patted their shoulders. I played with them the best in Three Yang Peak, especially senior brother Qin. You helped me a lot. Other people didn't notice anything else, but Xianyuan Mo saw her walk up to the two of them and put her hands on their shoulders. That intimate gesture and that physical contact made him feel like it was an eyesore. Therefore he walked forward and came to Fengjiu's side. His low and magnetic voice said seriously, "They did not know that you were a girl before, but now that they know, it is not good for them to be too close to you. Didn't you get up and see that their bodies stiffen when you put your hands on their shoulders?" As he spoke, he withdrew her hands from their shoulders. At the same time, he pulled her into his embrace and sat down at the table, pulling her away from the two of them. Qindao and Luo Heng were staring at Shangguan Wanrong in a daze and did not notice Fengjiu's hands on their shoulders. Also, although they knew that Fengjiu was a girl because she was wearing a red robe and not a red dress, and because they had interacted with her before, they naturally thought of her as a man. However, they did not feel uncomfortable at all. Therefore, when they suddenly heard Xianyuan Mo's words, the two of them were stunned. Qin Daoxian reacted first and merely smiled, but didn't say anything. Luo Heng, on the other hand, didn't react and instinctively said, "No. We are very comfortable. Don't talk about hooking up when we were in the peak. Before he could finish speaking, he felt Qindao bump into him. He paused and turned around to look at him. What? Qindao glanced at him and then looked away, indicating for him to look at Xianyuan Mo, who was emitting a dangerous aura from head to toe. He was speechless. This boy usually looked quite smart, but why was he so stupid sometimes? Chapter 16-18. Feeling that the atmosphere was not right and that everyone was staring at him, he knew that he had said something wrong no matter how slow he was. He immediately smiled embarrassedly. "Actually, it's not that. It's just that when we were in the peak, Fengjiu often helped us do things, and we all treated him like a brother." Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong on the side smiled and said, "All right, sit down. Today's breakfast was personally made by me. Have a taste and see how it tastes. Come, you two, sit down. Just treat this place as your own home, don't be restrained." "Thank you, Martial Uncle Shangguan," the two said as they sat down. Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. Others felt that he was dangerous, but she smelled his jealousy. This man was sometimes really narrow-minded. "Mother, let's take a stroll in Lily after breakfast." She knew that she rarely went shopping. Previously, she was imprisoned in the Shangguan family, and then she was imprisoned in the Danyang sect. Now that she had time and the poison in her body had been removed, she could accompany her to relax. "All right, then you and Leng Shuang will accompany me for a walk." When we went out to buy groceries this morning, many shops were not open yet, but the market on the street was quite lively. Shangguan Wanrong said with a smile, but when she thought of what happened this morning, she felt a little worried. Their appearances were so outstanding. If there were no guards following them, would they cause any trouble? "All right, then let's eat first." Fengjiu helped her pick up some food and then picked up a small bun for Xianyuan Mo, who was sitting next to him. "Try this, my mother made it. It's very delicious." Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo's expression softened a little, and there was a faint trace of joy in his eyes. However, he still had a taut face with a hint of arrogance and a cold look on his face. "You eat too." He also picked up some food for her and then began to eat with his chopsticks. After breakfast, Guan Shilin and the others agreed to go to the martial arts field to practice. Xianyuan Mo returned to his room to practice after Fengjiu and the others left. At the same time, he ordered Hui Lang to protect them in the dark. If it was not necessary, he did not need to show up. On the other side on the street. "Mother, let's go look for jewelry," Fengjiu suggested. She saw that Gu Shijio had nothing on her and was dressed simply and elegantly, so she wanted to buy some jewelry for her. Shangguan Wanrong thought she wanted to buy it, so she agreed. Okay, a girl should have a few pieces of jewelry, and you, in the future when you come home, you should wear more skirts, especially after you get married. You can't wear men's clothes as you wish. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled until his eyes curved, and his voice was light and cheerful as he said, Mother, don't look at Moses' appearance, he's actually henpecked. In the future if I say one he definitely won't say two. If I wear men's clothes he definitely won't dare to tell me to wear women's skirts for him to see, so you can relax. In the dark, Hui Lang, who heard this, almost burst out laughing. His master was henpecked. Alright, it seemed a bit. Even the ghost doctor knew that he was henpecked. It seemed that in the future his master would really be eaten alive. Ai, there was nothing to be done. Who told master to never take advantage of the ghost doctor from the past until now? Chapter 16-19. The emperor was not worried, but the eunuch was worried. Ba. He was not a eunuch. Master, I know of a jewelry shop in the city that has a lot of styles. If you want to buy jewelry you can go there and take a look. Lung Shuang, who was beside Fengjiu, said. Alright, let's go to the shop you mentioned. Lead the way. Fengjiu gestured. Yes. Lung Shuang replied and told them where to go. After walking around 2 streets and an alley, they arrived at the front of the jewel house. This is the place. Lung Shuang said and looked at the magnificent shop in front of him. The shop was very famous in the city. Not only was the jewelry expensive, but it was also said that some of the best styles were unique. Even if you wore it outside you would not look the same as others. Fengjiu held his mother's hand and walked in together. As soon as they entered, the shop assistant came up to greet them. Dear guests, please come in. The shop assistant invited them in with a smile. At the same time he secretly looked at Fengjiu and the other two. There was no other reason other than that the 3 of them were very good looking. Even though he was used to seeing all kinds of people in the upper class in the jewel house, it was rare to see people like them. Where are your best jewelry? Fengjiu asked. He looked around and saw that there were quite a lot of people. However, this building was divided into 2 floors. It couldn't be that everything was placed on the first floor, right? Dear guests, please follow me. The shop assistant led the way and brought the 3 of them to the back. They walked up the stairs to the 2nd floor. When they reached the 2nd floor, Fengjiu and the others saw that other than jewelry, the things on the 2nd floor were also magic tools. Furthermore, they were very exquisite magic tools. They could be used for self-defense and also as decoration. However, there were much fewer people here than on the 1st floor. There were only 7 or 8 people on the 2nd floor. Dear guests, please sit here. The shop assistant arranged seats for them and left them to the staff on the 2nd floor. What kind of jewelry are you looking for? Hair accessories or something else? I can introduce them to you. The person in front of Fengjiu was a delicate and pretty girl who looked like she was in her 20s. She was wearing the uniform of the 2nd floor of the treasure pavilion. What surprised Fengjiu was that the girls who were introduced to the customers on the 2nd floor all had decent cultivation. Furthermore, other than the people in the open, there were also a few pairs of eyes watching from the shadows. That's right, the jewelry on the 2nd floor wasn't just jewelry. Most of them were magic tools and the like. Naturally, the preciousness of the items on the 1st floor couldn't be compared to them. Let's take a look at each one. As Fengjiu spoke, his gaze swept across the cabinet in front of him. His gaze fell on a complete set of jewelry. He pointed at the set and said, "This, let me have a look." Okay, please wait a moment. The woman carefully took out the set of jewelry from the cabinet and placed it on the surface of the cabinet that was covered with a layer of black cloth. Only then did she say, "Dear customer, please take a look. This set has just arrived and was made by a refiner." As the woman introduced, Fengjiu held the set of jewelry and compared it to her mother's body. Because it was a set of aqua blue jewelry, it was quite compatible with her gentle temperament. Especially when the hairpin was pinned in her hair, it showed her gentle temperament. Chapter 16-20. Without saying a word, she took the hairpin from Fengjiu's hand and looked at it, asking, "This set of jewelry is quite nice, how much is it?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the girl. The girl was tall and dressed in gorgeous clothes. She was about 16 or 17 years old and was very beautiful. Her appearance was not bad, but her manners were lacking. Perhaps she felt that someone was staring at her, so she impatiently looked up. However, when her beautiful eyes met Fengjiu's wicked gaze, the other party instantly blushed and quickly lowered her head. Unexpectedly, she placed the hairpin in her hand in front of Fengjiu. "Young master, take a look first." Her voice instantly became gentle, her eyes filled with affection, and her actions were shy. Fengjiu's lips hooked up, and a faint light flashed through his eyes. "Miss also wants to buy jewelry?" Shangguan Wanrong saw her daughter flirt with the girl in front of her and couldn't help but secretly shake her head, but her eyes couldn't hide the affection in them. This child was really strange and full of tricks. There were many times when one didn't know what she would do in the next moment. Yes. The girl didn't seem to expect that the red-clothed youth in front of her would talk to her, so she became nervous again. For no reason at all, it was because the man in front of her was so handsome that she couldn't take her eyes off him. That exquisite and beautiful facial features and that charming and wanton smile really had a fatal effect on women. She couldn't find another person like him in the entire city. Therefore she was sure that this red-clothed youth was definitely from the outer city. If he was from the inner city, it was impossible for her not to recognize him. I think this set of jewelry is more gorgeous and can better set off Mrs. Luxurious aura. Fengjiu pointed to a set of jewelry set with red gems in the cabinet as he spoke. The girl standing in the cabinet heard this and quickly took out the jewelry set, placing it in front of the well-dressed girl. "Miss, please take a look. Mrs. Temperament is luxurious. I think this set and this set are both suitable for Mississippi." Fengjiu pointed at two more sets, and then picked up a hairpin from one of the sets and placed it in the girl's hair. He then had someone bring a mirror and said, "Miss, take a look." When the woman saw the young man in front of her leaning over, she was so nervous that her heart started thumping and her face became even redder. She noticed the white-clothed woman sitting quietly at the side and couldn't help but ask, "Who is this?" From the looks of it he was older than her, probably in his 20s. However, that peerlessly beautiful face and gentle temperament were things that even she could not compare to. As for the woman in black standing behind him, she should be a maid. Although her appearance was cold and elegant, one could tell at a glance that she wasn't a noble lady. "Oh, this is my mother," Fengjiu introduced generously. Hearing this, the woman was surprised. She quickly revealed a friendly smile and said, "Auntie, you're so young. I thought you were siblings." It seemed that she was from a noble family. Otherwise, she wouldn't have maintained herself so well. "Help me wrap up this set of jewelry." Fengjiu pointed at the set of aqua blue jewelry. Then, he looked at the woman beside him and asked, "Miss, do you like the first 3 sets of jewelry?" Hearing this, the woman was delighted, thinking that he was going to buy them for her. She nodded shyly and replied, I like them very much." Chapter 16:21. All right. She was so captivated by the man in front of her that she lost her sense of direction. She could only look at the person in front of her with a smile that made people unable to move their eyes away. When the maid beside the woman heard this, her heart skipped a beat. She glanced at the red-clothed youth and couldn't help but gently tug on her young miss sleeve. They didn't have that much money to buy these 3 sets of jewelry. If they couldn't take out the money at that time, they would lose a lot of face. On the other side, after Fengjiu paid the money, he handed the set of jewelry to his mother. "Mother, this set of jewelry is for you. Let's go look around somewhere else." He didn't even look at the woman again. Shangguan Wanrong smiled helplessly. "Mother usually doesn't wear these things. Even so, I bought it. Mother, even if you don't wear it, you still have to wear it." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. She lightly held her mother's hand and was about to leave. At this time, the well-dressed woman who saw this scene finally returned to her senses. She couldn't help but call out, "Young master, you're leaving just like that? Didn't he want to buy jewelry for her? Why did he leave?" Fengjiu looked back and smiled. "Miss, take your time looking around. We'll be leaving first. If fate wills it, we'll meet again." As soon as his voice fell, a smile bloomed on his lips. The woman stood there in a daze and didn't come back to her senses for a long time. "All right, if fate wills it, we'll meet again," she muttered until the person turned the corner and walked down the first floor. Only then did she come back to her senses. "Young miss, the 3 sets of jewelry cost a total of 2,888,000 gold coins. Because young miss bought 3 sets, I've removed the ending number and only charged you 2,880,000 gold coins. I wonder if young miss would like to pay in cash or with a black crystal card." Hearing this, the well-dressed woman was even more dumbfounded. "What? 2,880,000 gold coins? Why is it so expensive?" This was equivalent to 3 years of her family's expenses. How could she afford it? This is the work of a master refiner. Moreover, each piece is unique. The price of 3 pieces isn't considered expensive. The set of blue jewelry that the red-clothed young master bought just now cost 3,600,000 gold coins. The woman behind the counter said as she looked at the woman in front of her. She seemed to be a child of a noble family. However, if she was just a child of a noble family, she might not be able to afford the jewelry here. The woman's eyes widened. Why is that set so expensive? Is there anything special about it? Every single accessory in that set has defensive and offensive functions, and it can even withstand multiple attacks from a fairy realm expert. Hence, it's a little more expensive. In addition, it's made of blue crystal salt. Blue crystal salt can only be produced once every 10 years, and it has the effect of calming one's mind, regulating one's breathing, and automatically restoring one's body. So, it's only natural that it's priced at 3.6 million. If it was placed in an auction, it would definitely fetch more than that. Hearing the woman's words, the luxuriously dressed woman's pretty face turned red and white. Looking at the people around her who were pointing at her, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. She flung her sleeve and said, "I'm not buying." Then she walked out with large strides. If she didn't buy it, she would only lose face. If she bought it, she would have to bear her father's scolding and lecturing. She wouldn't be able to bear such a consequence, and she could only lose face today. Seeing the woman walk out with large strides, the woman behind the counter looked at her for a while, then took the 3 sets of jewelry back and put them away. Chapter 1622. After leaving the treasure pavilion, Shangguan Wanrong said, "Xiaojiu, this set of jewelry shouldn't be cheap, right?" She said that it was the work of a master refiner and that it was some kind of salt sea blue crystal, so it shouldn't be cheap. "Mother, I have plenty of money, so don't worry." She sold a bottle of pills, so how much money did she get? It had to be known that for alchemists and alchemists, what they didn't lack the least was money. That still can't be spent carelessly. How can it be called spending carelessly if I bought it for Mother? She smiled and held her hand. "There's a tea house up ahead, let's go have a cup of tea." Thus, the 3 people went to the tea house's 2nd floor and sat down at a table by the window. They ordered a pot of good tea and a few plates of snacks, then sat and chatted while looking at the scenery. "Mother, put on that set of jewelry. It's sky blue and isn't too eye-catching. Moreover, it has the ability to defend against attacks. Wearing it will only bring you benefits and no harm. Wear it here." Shangguan Wanrong was startled. "I'll help Mother put it on." She smiled and looked at her as she spoke. Seeing that her interest hadn't diminished, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and replied, "All right." Then she took out the set of jewelry and placed it on the table. The jewelry consisted of a space ring, a bracelet, a pair of pearl earrings, a drop-shaped necklace, and a hairpin. The designs weren't gorgeous or eye-catching. Even if it was worn on the body, people who didn't know the goods wouldn't be able to see the value of this set of jewelry. While helping her mother put it on, Fengjiu said, "I originally wanted to learn how to refine weapons, so I bought some materials, but later found that I didn't have the time to learn this." "You already know a lot, so you don't need to force yourself to learn too much. If you have time to learn too much, it will only tire you out," she softly said to her daughter, her heart filled with emotion. At her age, how many people had experienced the same things as her? She had already done very well. "And I'll wait until I have time to learn. Right now, let's take care of the matters in front of us first." She smiled and stepped back, then asked Lung Shuang, "How is it? My eyesight, isn't it good?" Lung Shuang nodded. "Yes." Hearing this, she smiled and said, "I also think it suits my mother very well." Her voice paused for a moment before she continued, "Mother, let's go back in a few days. It's quite a distance away, so I'm guessing that Father must be waiting anxiously at home. We can depart anytime. But, have you settled your matters here?" she asked. "There's nothing else. However, I've always wanted to visit the owner of the black market. Who knew that he would be away for a long time and I didn't get to see him? Last time, that person said that he would inform me if he came back. It seems that he hasn't returned yet." Fengjiu sat back down at the table. He rested his face on one hand and took a sip of tea with the other. He felt helpless about this. Who would have thought that he wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market? She was really curious. What kind of person was he? Then what should we do? Was she going to leave after seeing him? Or should we talk about it in the future? It should be fate that hasn't arrived yet. Let's talk about it in the future. When the time comes, I'm sure we'll meet. She didn't believe that she wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market. Chapter 1623. Calculating the time, her little uncle should be almost 3 years old, right? Thinking of this, she laughed. Mother, Grandpa and Grandmother gave birth to little uncle so young. She gestured while saying, "At that time I was the one who helped him give birth. He's white, tender and chubby. Counting the time, he should be almost 3 years old now. When we get home, Mother, do you and Father want to give birth to a younger brother or sister for me to play with?" Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong lightly tapped the tip of her nose. You child, you're not serious at all. You really dare to say anything. I'm telling the truth. I quite like children, especially white and chubby children. They're even more adorable. That little uncle is really taking advantage. At such a young age, I have to call him little uncle because of his seniority. She curled her lips and couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. When we get home this time, he should be able to call people. I'll give him candy and coax him to call me aunt. Nonsense. Shangguan Wanrong couldn't help but laugh. Looking at her, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. What, aunt? Really nonsense. His seniority is there. Even I have to call him little uncle. Speaking of this, she finally felt that it was strange. That's right, it's really weird to call a baby uncle. If it really doesn't work, I'll have him call me big sister. In short, I have to coax him to call me a few times. Think about it. If he says the words little niece, from his little mouth, it'll be strange. Speaking of this, Fengjiu rubbed her hands and shivered. This thing called seniority really wasn't fun. Listening to the two people's conversation, Lung Shuang on the side also revealed a smile on his face. Seeing Master and Madam getting along with each other warmly and comfortably, the tenderness between the two of them really made people envious. On the other side, Feng Xiao, who was hurrying on his way, saw an inn on the side of the mountain road. Outside the door, there was a lantern swaying in the wind. He originally planned to stay and rest, but after seeing the inn's unusual calmness, he decided to continue on his way and rest at the next stop. However, just as he was about to leave, he heard a hoarse voice come from behind him. Moreover, the inn's door opened at this time. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a night? He turned around and saw that it was a hunchbacked old man. Looking through the open door, it was not difficult to see that there was no one else in the inn. No need, Feng Xiao said with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. In this place there were no villages to be seen, no shops to be seen. It was indeed strange for this inn to be opened here. Moreover, this hunchbacked old man's cultivation was not weak, but he was running an inn here. He felt that it was better for him to leave as soon as possible. Ha ha ha. The old man laughed. His voice was hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. He gazed at the man outside and said, "You're a foreigner, right? That's why I don't know where this place is. Those who know this path won't take it. Only some outsiders would choose this path by accident." Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked at him and asked, "And then?" Chapter 16:24. Hearing this, Feng Xiao stared at the old man for a while and fell into deep thought. After a long while, he said, "If so, then I'll have to disturb you." With that, he walked inside. He wanted to see what was so strange about this shop. Did the old man have any ill intentions as he said? The fire phoenix on his shoulder looked around and said to Feng Xiao, "I don't feel this place during the day, but after the sky darkens the yin energy becomes heavier." Feng Xiao nodded. He knew that this place was strange. He had to be careful both outside and inside the inn. However, when he walked into the inn, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. When he was outside, he couldn't see anyone inside, nor could he sense any aura. However, when he walked in, he realized that the inn had a barrier around it. The barrier covered everything inside, so he couldn't see the people inside from the outside, but he could see the outside from the inside. Moreover, it wasn't that there was no one inside. On the contrary, it was very familiar. Rogue cultivators sat in groups of 3 to 5. Some were drinking wine, some were tasting tea, and some were chatting and laughing. The lively scene formed a strong contrast to the outside. Seeing so many rogue cultivators inside, he had a new understanding of this shop. This shop was definitely strange, but many rogue cultivators still came in. Moreover, it seemed that nothing had happened. At this moment, when the people in the inn saw Feng Xiao enter, they all stopped what they were doing and looked over. After sizing him up, they looked away. So he's a mystic cultivator. I was wondering who he was. I wonder where this mystic cultivator came from. He actually dares to walk this path. It seems like he has some guts. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to this inn. Ah, that's true. Those people discussed. They didn't lower their voices because Feng Xiao was there. Instead, they talked with their backs to him. It was obvious that they didn't take him seriously. Compared to spirit cultivators, mystic cultivators would always be looked down upon. Unless you had powerful combat strength, you would be able to change people's opinion of you. Listening to those people, Feng Xiao didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he glanced inside and found that even if there were first and second floors here, there didn't seem to be any side rooms. Whether it was the first floor or the second floor, everyone was sitting at the table. Even if they were resting with their eyes closed, they were leaning against the wall. Thus, he looked at the old man and asked, Are there no side rooms here? A side room? The old man was startled, then he chuckled. No, I only provide a place for you to spend the night. I don't provide a bed for you to sleep in. As he spoke, he walked to the counter and said to Feng Xiao, pay the overnight fee. 50 gold coins for the first floor and 100 gold coins for the second floor. Which floor do you want? Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked up and down and asked, is there a difference? Regardless of whether it was above or below, there were no beds to rest on, so why was the price different? Yes, of course there is a difference. The old man chuckled and looked at Feng Xiao. It seems that you really don't know anything. Since that's the case, I'll remind you that with your strength, it's better for you to stay on the second floor. Feng Xiao wasn't lacking in money. Hearing the old man's words, he paid 100 gold coins and walked up to the second floor under the old man's lead. Only when he stepped onto the second floor did he realize that there was also a barrier on the second floor. Moreover, it was a defensive barrier that was even stronger than the one below. Chapter 1625. You can sit here. The old man led him to an empty table in the corner and asked, do you want some wine? The price is extra. No need. Feng Xiao said, sitting down at the table and taking out some dry food from his space to eat. Seeing this, the old man smiled and walked down the stairs. Hey, why are you taking this path too? And by yourself? You've got guts. You're also here for the elemental spirit fruit? A rogue cultivator looked at Feng Xiao and asked, what elemental spirit fruit? I just asked for directions and knew it was closer, so I took this path. I don't know what elemental spirit fruit is. Feng Xiao said, not knowing anything about the elemental spirit fruit. Ah, so it's like that? Then I really don't know how to describe your luck. That person laughed and said, most of the rogue cultivators here are here for the elemental spirit fruit. It's a good thing, one can instantly increase one's strength by 1 level and increase one's strength by 1 stage. It's a good thing that's hard to come by. However, although this treasure is good, it's also very difficult to pick it. Because the elemental spirit fruit grows in extremely cold places and is guarded by thousands of ghosts. This mountain range is called the Ghost Mountain. Ordinary people don't dare to come here. Feng Xiao was slightly startled. He was just passing by, but he didn't expect to get involved in such a place. No wonder the old man said that it's impossible to walk out of this mountain at night. So this was the reason. The land of 10,000 ghosts? That's a place of extreme cold. Moreover, it seems that tonight is a full moon night when the yin qi is abundant. If he stayed here, would it be? He was a little worried, and at this time Fire Phoenix's low voice entered his ears. Don't worry, I'm here for you. After hearing Fire Phoenix's voice, Feng Xiao's expression relaxed and he exhaled softly. Yes, he wasn't alone on this journey, he still had Fire Phoenix by his side. If there really was something he couldn't handle, Fire Phoenix would be there. Thinking of this, he calmed himself down. He didn't want any elemental spirit fruit, so it was better to take advantage of this time to rest and restore his spirit. Thus, he began to eat the rations in his hand and prepared some for the Fire Phoenix. When the rogue cultivators who were drinking and chatting saw the Fire Phoenix jump down from his shoulder, they all laughed. It can't be? Is this bird your contracted beast? It's too shabby. What's the use of a bird that can be pinched to death? I didn't expect a mystic's contracted beast to be like this. That's right. Mystics aren't strong enough to begin with, and they even contracted such a small bird. This is really an eye-opener. Ah. Feng Jiao, who was eating his rations, looked up at them and said, I think what kind of contract beast I contract has nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter. We're just interested in watching. As one of them spoke, he shook his head and ignored Feng Xiao. Instead, he said to the rogue cultivators at the same table, Come, let's have another drink. Feng Xiao averted his gaze. After instructing Fire Phoenix, he set up a small soundproof barrier around him, then closed his eyes and leaned against the wall to rest. Without the voices outside, the entire world seemed to have quieted down. Coupled with the fatigue from rushing all the way here, he actually fell into a deep sleep not long after. Chapter 1626. It was as if there were pairs of invisible hands slapping on the door of the inn, making banging sounds. The lanterns outside the door swayed in the wind. The flames had been extinguished by the wind, leaving only darkness. Hearing the commotion outside, everyone in the inn quieted down. Except for a few people who were drunk and lying on the table, everyone else stared outside with vigilant expressions. The people on the first floor of the inn were like this, and so were the people on the second floor. However, compared to the people on the first floor, They were more at ease because they had an extra layer of protective enchantments. While everyone was vigilantly staring below, in the corner of the second floor, Feng Xiao was still sleeping. Because he had set up a soundproof enchantment, he couldn't hear the sounds outside. Naturally, he also couldn't hear the strange and frightening whistling of the wind. Gee, this person is quite carefree. A rogue cultivator glanced at the sleeping Feng Xiao and sneered, "Later you won't even know how you die." The others also glanced at Feng Xiao in the corner, waiting for a good show. As the night deepened, it was getting closer to midnight. Some people were already preparing to go out, while others planned to watch from the sidelines. The origin spirit fruit had to be obtained. It was less than 100 meters away in the back of the valley. The people on the first floor went out together. Although they knew that the Yin energy was the strongest at midnight, tonight was the time when the origin spirit fruit was ripe and fell to the ground. Even 100 ghosts would fight for it, let alone them. One had to know that even if a ghost obtained the origin spirit fruit, it would still have 100 years of cultivation. And if they wanted the origin spirit fruit, they would have to compete with 100 ghosts. The people in the inn went out one by one. Some went out together, some went out alone. Gradually, even the people on the second floor went out. Only the old man shuttled back and forth in the inn to pack things. When he came to the second floor, he found Feng Xiao sleeping in the corner. The old man smiled and walked to the side to sit down. At midnight, the entire moon was covered by dark clouds. At this moment, the inn's door was blown open by a gust of wind. The chilly night wind was accompanied by ghostly cries and wolf howls. Faintly, a white shadow floated in. The table on the first floor was destroyed and pushed to the side. Countless white shadows floated in from the door and ran around. The few drunk rogue cultivators on the first floor suddenly stood up after a fierce shake. Ah! Loud laughter rang out from the few rogue cultivators. Under the suppression of the pressure, the airflow in the air vibrated faintly. Their faces were ferocious. After sweeping their gazes fell on the few remaining people on the second floor. They have been possessed by ghosts. The expressions of the rogue cultivators on the second floor changed. When they saw the possessed rogue cultivators trying to break the barrier and come up, they couldn't help but look at the old man sitting on the side. Can this barrier stop them? The old man stroked his beard and glanced down. This barrier is used to stop ghosts, not people. If there are no accidents, this barrier won't be able to block more than a few attacks from those people. What? You damn old man. If it can't block more than a few attacks, you still have the nerve to charge us 100 gold coins? The rogue cultivators shouted in exasperation. They raised their swords and prepared to fight. Chapter 1627. Feng Xiao, who was in the corner, was also targeted by the ghosts. However, the masculine aura on his body was too strong, so not many ghosts stepped forward. Only a few of them with heavier Yin aura dashed forward, but they did not dare to approach him. This was because the fire phoenix who had landed on Feng Xiao's shoulder had released her aura. The powerful ancient aura and the masculine aura on Feng Xiao's body made the ghosts not dare to approach him. Furthermore, another reason was that he was the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty. His aura was extremely intimidating. Other than a few ferocious ghosts, ordinary ghosts did not dare to offend him. When they saw the ghosts surrounding the sleeping person and not daring to approach him, the wandering cultivators on the second floor could not help but widen their eyes in astonishment. Who on earth is that person? These ghosts are actually afraid of him? Even the elder's eyes flashed with astonishment. He did not expect to see such a scene. He had originally thought that Feng Xiao's strength was ordinary, but looking at the situation now, it seemed that he had underestimated him. The ghosts could not do anything to Feng Xiao, but the wandering cultivators who had been possessed by ghosts raised their swords and sabers and fiercely slashed at the sleeping Feng Xiao. Seeing this, the fire phoenix woke Feng Xiao up. Almost at the same time that the fire phoenix spoke, Feng Xiao opened his eyes and drew the sword at his waist, blocking the wandering cultivator's attack. Clang! Whoosh! He suddenly stood up, and his aura immediately filled the air. This was the aura and pressure of a martial saint. It was powerful and had the aura of a ruler who had been in a high position for a long time. His tiger eyes were sharp and intimidating. Before he had become the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty, he had been the imperial general. His battle strength was astonishing, and his aura was even more intimidating. Now that his battle intent had been aroused, the aura in the air on the second floor seemed to fluctuate. When the others saw this, their eyes narrowed. Wasn't this person a mystic? How could he have such an aura? The elder retreated to the back and watched quietly. Looking at the situation, Only this person in the entire inn was surprised. The sharp swords and sabers mercilessly slashed out, and a sharp and intimidating aura spread out in the air. The clanging sounds of swords and sabers clashing against each other, as well as the screams and wails of the ghosts, entered one's ears. A gale suddenly rose and the inn was blown to the point that it was on the verge of collapsing. The wooden blocks on the roof fell down amidst the gale and the airflow. The few large pillars supporting the inn were cut down by the sword chi during the battle. With a rumbling sound, the entire inn instantly collapsed into ruins. At the same time, several figures flew out from the ruins. They rushed out of the collapsed inn and stood in the middle of the night. When Feng Xiao, who was standing in the air, saw the scene outside the inn, his face couldn't help but become serious. Everywhere he looked there were ghosts everywhere. The whole mountain was filled with a gloomy aura. Howling sounds were constantly coming out. It was very frightening. It really is the land of 10,000 ghosts, he murmured, frowning slightly. He had no intention of getting involved in these matters, but the current situation seemed to be beyond his control. Since we're here, let's get involved. Didn't they say that the origin spirit fruit was something good? Let's go pick one and join in the fun. The fire phoenix stared at the front with great interest. Since they couldn't avoid it, they might as well snatch it. Chapter 1628. Feng Xiao glanced at the few of them and saw that the old man had an air current protecting him, like a protective shield, preventing the ghosts from approaching him. As for the other few people, they were in a sorry state and were still killing the ghosts that were pouncing towards them. Seeing this, Feng Xiao threw out his flying device and flew forward with his sword in hand. He infused his sword with spiritual energy and swung it until he was 100 meters away. Seeing the scene in the valley, he was about to go down when he heard the fire phoenix's voice. Wait a minute. What's wrong? Feng Xiao asked. There's poisonous fog down there. That holy spirit fruit should be a glowing object in the middle of the poisonous fog. If we go down there, it'll be difficult for us to escape. Listen to me, we'll do this. The fire phoenix suggested and told him the plan. Hearing this, Feng Xiao paused and asked, Are you confident? Don't worry, we can deal with these small problems. The fire phoenix raised its chin and said confidently. Good. After he responded, he turned around and headed towards the path he wanted to pass through. While no one was paying attention, the fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew down the valley. Seeing Feng Xiao heading in another direction, other than the old man, everyone else thought that he was afraid and did not dare to go down, so they sneered. I thought that he really had some skills and was a real man, but it seems that he's just SOSO. The old man did not say anything. He watched as Feng Xiao rushed out of the ghost array and entered the mountain of enchantment, gradually disappearing into the distance. The mountain of enchantment in the ghost mountain was set up with a spirit enchantment. It was not something an ordinary cultivator could walk out of. Especially at night, the array was even more changeable. He wanted to go out and take a look, but he was entangled by the ghosts that suddenly rushed out, so he could only retreat step by step. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the valley suddenly emitted a phoenix cry, and flames soared into the sky. The raging flames instantly spread to the entire mountain top, and the surging flames illuminated the entire night. The raging flames drove away the cold air, and for a moment, everyone was shocked and screamed. It's the ancient divine beast fire phoenix. Heavens! Why would the ancient divine beast fire phoenix appear here? This fire phoenix is actually here to steal the holy spirit fruit? Where did this ancient fire phoenix come from? Who is its owner? Damn it! What did it want the holy spirit fruit for? That thing is useless to it. For a moment, cries of surprise and screams mixed together. Those rogue cultivators all felt that it was inconceivable. Although the holy spirit fruit was a saint-grade spirit fruit, and eating one could greatly increase one's strength, it was not an existence that defied the natural order. However, such a holy spirit fruit had actually attracted an ancient divine beast to fight over it. Furthermore, it had immediately isolated the surroundings with a fire, and the holy spirit fruit was also plucked by it. Seeing the fire phoenix soar into the sky, flapping its wings and disappearing into the night, everyone was dumbfounded. They had worked hard for more than half a month, guarding for more than half a month, all for the sake of this holy spirit fruit. But in the end, a bird had beaten them to it? Fine. Even if this bird was an ancient divine bird, why would an ancient divine beast appear out of nowhere to snatch something from them? Which despicable bastard had ordered it to do this? It was too simple, too hateful. Chapter 1629. 10 days later, deep in the mountains, 3 bolts of heavenly lightning struck down one after another. Then peace was restored. The heavenly lightning came suddenly and left quickly. Because it was deep in the mountains, it did not alarm anyone. Deep in the mountains, Feng Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged, exhaled softly. He slowly opened his eyes, and a strange light appeared in his eyes. He had used 10 days to advance from the martial saint realm to the martial god realm after consuming the origin spirit fruit. Finally, he had successfully entered the martial god realm and became a martial god. The sudden increase in his strength had restored his appearance to its peak. Now, it was as if time had not left any traces on his face. Now, even if Fengjiu stood in front of him, he probably would not be able to recognize him. Upon entering the martial god realm, one's strength would be comparable to a fairy realm fighter. Not only would the aura around one's body be greatly different, but even a single gaze or the release of pressure would have an absolute power of intimidation. This was especially so since there were very few Shen martial artists who could cultivate to the martial god realm. It's as if you've changed into a different person. The fire phoenix looked down from a branch and was very surprised. Its strength had increased because it had entered the growth period, but the human's strength had increased because he had become younger. Fire Phoenix, thank you so much for these past few days. He thanked it in a low and dignified voice. It's nothing. The fire phoenix flapped its wings and said, Xiaojiu will be very happy that you've advanced. But now that you've become younger, Xiaojiu probably won't be able to recognize you as her father. Look at you now, you're almost catching up to Guan Shilin. Hearing this, Feng Xiao could not help but laugh loudly. You're exaggerating. Although he said this, he was in high spirits. He was very happy that he had successfully advanced to the martial god realm. After all, every time he advanced to the next level, his strength would increase again. It was a good thing for him, his family, and the empire. Only when his strength was so strong that he could not be offended could he protect the people he wanted to protect. We have to set off quickly. We've been delayed for so long. I wonder where Xiaojiu and the rest are now. We have to find people from Yandian to ask for information. Then let's go. The fire phoenix flew to his shoulder and stopped. After Feng Xiao took out his aircraft and threw it into the air, the man and the bird left the forest where they had stayed for 10 days. On the other side, Fengjiu and the others did not leave. They had originally planned to return to the Phoenix dynasty, but when they received news that the ancient divine beast, Fire Phoenix, had appeared in the border city, they cancelled their plans to return. While waiting, they asked around for more information. The ancient mythical beast Fire Phoenix had appeared? There was only one primordial Fire Phoenix in this world, and it was her contracted beast. Now that it had appeared here, it must be the Fire Phoenix from the Phoenix dynasty. Other than her father, there was probably no one else who could come with it. However, she did not expect her father to put aside everything he was doing and bring the Fire Phoenix along. He must be worried about them, or perhaps he was anxious to see her mother. Xiaojiu. Chapter 1630. Don't worry. With the Fire Phoenix accompanying him, nothing will happen to father. Fengjiu chuckled. Holding her hand, he pulled her to the table and sat down. Mose has already sent people to look for him. There should be news of father soon. Also, we'll wait for him here. This way we won't miss him. As long as there's news and we know where he is, we can go over. I hope he's fine. Shangguan Wanrong sighed. She was still a bit worried. Because she knew from her daughter that Feng Zhao's strength wasn't very strong. If that kind of strength went to a place like the 8 great empires, she was afraid. Ghost Doctor. Hui Lang walked in with a smile on his face. Master sent me to tell you good news. Is there news of my father? Fengjiu looked at him and asked. No. Hui Lang shook his head and said, This is strange. Until now, we still haven't found your father's whereabouts. Master guessed that the path he took was a bit remote. If we want news of him, it will take another 2 days. The good news I came to tell you is that there's news of the Wanyan Chenhua you asked us to look for. Her expression lit up and she asked, Where is she? The Wanyan family is a hidden family. News and matters related to the Wanyan family are rarely spread outside. Our people only found out that the Wanyan family is a hidden family and that their family may be related to some forces in other places. We don't know anything else. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. Since it's a hidden family, they naturally won't easily let outsiders find out about their news. Fine, let's leave it at that. If fate wills it, we'll still see her in the future. Originally, she wanted to take advantage of this time to look for Wanyan Chenhua, her sworn sister, in the 8 great empires. She didn't expect that the other party's family was a hidden family. Since that was the case, she didn't investigate further. She believed that if fate willed it, they would meet sooner or later. That's right, where's your master? Why haven't I seen the two of them? Fengjiu asked. She thought about how she hadn't seen Xinyuan Mo's these past few days. Where did he go? Recently, Master has been cultivating whenever he has time. He just advanced 2 days ago and is currently researching a new sword technique in the training field. Ghost Doctor, do you want to go over and take a look? Hui Lang couldn't help but suggest. Recently, because the Ghost Doctor had been accompanying her mother, Mistress was like a resentful woman who had been left out in the cold. If she wasn't cultivating, she would be practicing the sword. If it was anyone else, he would have directly chased them away, but this person was the Ghost Doctor's mother. No matter how dissatisfied his master was, he couldn't open his mouth to chase them away. He could only keep it in his heart, or else he would vent his anger on them. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. She said to her mother, "Mother, I'm going to check on Mo's. If you're bored, I'll call Lung Shuang over to accompany you." "It's fine, you can go. You don't have to stay here with Mother all day. If you have time, spend more time with Mo's. You're both about to get married. In the past, you were always separated from each other. Right now, it's a good time to cultivate your feelings." She gently patted Fengjiu's hand, indicating for her to go. Then I'll be going." Fengjiu stood up and followed Hui Lang out. She asked, "Hui Lang, how's your master's mood today?" Behind them, Shengguan Wanrong smiled slightly when she heard her daughter's voice. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. Chapter 1631. Master always keeps a straight face, so it's hard to tell. The Ghost Doctor will know when she gets there. Hui Lang grinned as he spoke while muttering in his heart. Even if he knew that Master was in a bad mood due to being neglected, he still couldn't expose Master's secret. Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her eyebrows and with a smile on her lips she walked forward. Until she arrived at the training grounds, and saw the black-clothed Xinyuan Mo's with a powerful aura practicing his sword. Her eyes slightly moved, and in the next moment she lightly tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and leapt up, taking out the Qingfeng sword from the air and stabbing it towards him. Xinyuan Mo's glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and saw her flying towards him, so he waved the sword in his hand to block. Only to hear the sound of a stream of air passing by, and the sharp chi of the sword rushed towards Fengjiu. Clang! The two swords collided and a clear clang rang out. Sparks flew out, and the two streams of air mixed with each other, and then disappeared without a trace. Seeing the sword in Xinyuan Mo's hand, Fengjiu's eyes lit up. It's the Xinyuan sword. This was his sword, and it was also an ancient divine sword that wasn't inferior to the Qingfeng sword. In that moment, she had the thought of comparing notes with him, and wanted to see what would happen if these two swords collided. Thus, the hand holding the sword turned, and she once again leaned forward. Seeing this, Xinyuan Mo's deep black eyes moved, and he immediately retreated. The tip of his sword turned, and his sword form changed. He used the sword in his hand to wrap around her Qingfeng sword, and led her to move, leading her in swinging the sword. Fengjiu was surprised and no longer attacked but followed him. Wherever his sword went, how he swung it, she would follow and learn. After a whole set of sword moves, she was surprised to find that this set of sword moves could be used alone or in pairs. A single person's sword was fierce, and the sword's edge was cold, but when two people swung their swords, the power was stronger and they could release a stronger battle strength. Hui Lang and Ing stood outside the training grounds watching the two people, one black and one red. The man was domineering and the woman was beautiful. The calm black clothes and the dazzling red clothes intertwined, constantly changing, giving people a visual impact, and making people unable to move their eyes away from the two people. Master and the Ghost Doctor are really too compatible. Say, how can there be a person like the Ghost Doctor in this world? Before meeting the Ghost Doctor, Master, there was never a woman and I was worried that he was gay, but luckily, a woman like the Ghost Doctor appeared. Hui Lang grinned, feeling both emotional and gratified. Although they were master and servant, they were not ordinary masters and servants. Seeing that Master could meet someone he liked, he was really happy. Ing Yi, who was beside him, glanced at him. You're lamenting that you haven't met the right woman? I remember that you've been single for over 20 years, so why aren't you worried that you'll be gay? Hearing this, Hui Lang's eyes flashed with bad intentions. He looked at Ing Yi and suddenly revealed a shy and embarrassed smile. He reached out and hugged his arm, asking with a smile, Ing Yi, how did you know? You also felt it, right? As he spoke, that hand kept rubbing his arm, making Ing Yi jump up in shock. He quickly slapped his hand away and stared at him defensively. If you want to talk, then talk. What's a grown man like you doing being so clumsy? Chapter 1632. Stop. Yi hurriedly interrupted him and stared at him. Who's your childhood sweetheart? Don't talk nonsense. Aren't we? We grew up together and we trained together, ate and slept together. We even bathed together and wore the same pants. I've even seen you naked. We're so close. Aren't we childhood sweethearts? As soon as Ing heard his words, his face darkened, and the hairs on his body stood up. Especially when his eyes were darting around, it made him feel very strange. Why didn't he notice Hui Lang's interest in this before? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shiver. He stared at him warily and quickly flashed away to wait on the other side. Watching him leave as if he was running for his life, Hui Lang smiled triumphantly. You want to fight me with paralysis? Aren't you looking for trouble? He snorted and watched the two people practicing swordsmanship in the martial arts field. After about 2 hours, the two of them stopped. At that moment, Feng Jiu was already drenched in sweat, but her eyes shone brightly. She looked at Xinyuan Mo's in front of her and asked excitedly, Did you really create this set of sword techniques? Do you like it? Xinyuan Mo smiled faintly and reached out to tuck her hair behind her ear. His actions were intimate and natural. Yes, I like it very much. This set of swordsmanship is very lethal. If two people work together, they can complement each other. Their fighting power is extraordinary and it's not easy to break the sword moves. By the way, what's the name of this set of swordsmanship? Xinyuan Mo's only felt his heart melt when he saw the excitement on her face and how she looked at him with amazement in her eyes. He also felt a sense of accomplishment. His manly heart was completely satisfied, and he faintly felt a sense of pride. This set of swordsmanship is called the Dragon Fengjio sword. If it's used alone, then I'll use the dragon-shaped 9 swords and you'll use the Phoenix Shadow 9 swords. This set of swordsmanship can be combined and disassembled with endless changes. If it's combined into one, its power will greatly increase. Speaking of this, his voice paused and a touch of gentleness and affection appeared in his deep eyes. He slowly said, Moreover, I created this set of swordsmanship for you and me. You have to remember the mantra I taught you before and use it with this set of swordsmanship. In the future, you can pass the set of swordsmanship down to our children. What he wanted was actually very simple. He wanted to live together with his beloved and build a warm and happy home. Looking down, he felt that he wasn't far from his goal. Fengjio hearing this and laughed. We haven't even married yet and you're already talking about children? You're too impatient. Ghost Doctor, even if Master isn't impatient, I'm impatient. I also want to have a little master. Hui Lang grinned and raised his voice as he spoke. Seeing the two of them looking at him, he laughed and said, Moreover, if you have a little master soon, I, Hui Lang, can even help you raise one. Hearing this, Fengjio thought of Hui Lang carrying a little child on his back and holding a little child on his back. He couldn't help but laugh. Yi appeared out of nowhere and said indifferently, If you really have a little master for you to raise, I won't be at ease. Chapter 1633. That's enough, we've digressed. What's there to talk about when I haven't even seen his shadow? Fengjio smiled and raised her hand, indicating for the two to stop talking. She then turned to Xinyuan Mo's and said, Do you want to go back and take a bath? Xinyuan Mo's eyes moved, a dark light flashing through his deep eyes. He stared at her and moved his lips. Yes. Okay. Then let's go. She put away the Qingfeng sword, not noticing his deep eyes. She reached out and took his hand to leave with him. Watching the two leave, Hui Lang reached out and put his arm around Yi's shoulder. He said mysteriously, Hey, did you see the master's eyes? Yi glanced at him and shook off his hand. Go away. Then he strode away and followed behind the two people in front of him, not too far nor too close. Back in the courtyard, Fengjio ordered the servants to prepare hot water for her bath. When she entered the room, she found that Xinyuan Mo's had followed her in. She couldn't help but be startled. You're not going to take a bath? Xinyuan Mo's looked at her. Of course. He entered the room and looked around. Then he came in front of the steaming hot tub. It's just right for you to take a bath here. This tub is definitely big enough. Hearing this, Fengjio's mouth twitched. You're not serious, are you? Xuanyuan's eyes moved slightly. He stepped forward and hugged her who was standing by the door. At the same time, he waved his hand to close the door and locked it. Fengjio only felt her whole body being lifted up and directly walked inside. She was so stunned that she didn't know how to react. Xinyuan Mo's was a man who was inwardly passionate. He always had a cold and serious expression on his face, but he always wore red underwear. In the past, although he was impatient, he would always restrain himself. Especially when her mother was here, he didn't cross the line. But today, open your hand. His deep and magnetic voice entered her ears, and the man's unique warm breath sprayed behind her ear, making her feel numb, and she couldn't help but have goosebumps. Only then did she react. She was already standing by the side of the tub and he was standing behind her. She didn't know what she was thinking, but she actually did as he said. She opened her hands and let him take off her clothes and outerwear. The red robe was undone. He raised his hand and threw the red robe to the screen. His hand moved up from her waist. When he touched her flat chest, he hugged her from behind and asked in her ear, "You're still wearing your chest?" "Yes." She replied, "I'm wearing men's clothing to wear a bra. When we're married, you're not to wear it anymore. After we get married." His voice was low and hoarse. His hand went to her underwear and took it off. Then he turned her around to face him. When he saw her snow-white shoulders and beautiful and sexy collarbones in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but darken. His gaze gradually moved down and fell on the white cloth wrapped around her chest. He remembered that she was full here. Now, such a full existence was squeezed under the white cloth. Looking at it made his heart ache, but at the same time, a flame ignited in his heart. Chapter 1634. When a slight bang sounded, the cloth was torn into small pieces and scattered on the ground, jumping into Shenyuan Mose's eyes. It made his breathing a little heavier, and a dark light floated in the depths of his eyes. His throat involuntarily swallowed, and his deep and burning gaze fell on her chest, unable to move away for a long time. So beautiful that his voice was hoarse, and his breathing seemed to have frozen for a moment. His whole person and mind became restless, and he had an impulse to fiercely take her. However, he had said that he would save the most beautiful night between them for the wedding night, so, looking at her beautiful face in front of him, her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were slightly raised, and the corners of her lips were slightly curved with a trace of charm as she looked at him. Her entire body was emitting an enchanting and evil charm that made people want to commit a crime. He raised his hand and almost in the blink of an eye, he took off his clothes. He reached out and took her into the bathtub. As soon as the two of them entered the bathtub, the water splashed out and overflowed all over the ground. The sound of water splashing could be heard, and the petals floated in the clouds. The faint fragrance of flowers filled the air and intertwined with that burning passion. In the evening, Shengwan Wanrong, who had nothing to do, personally cooked a few dishes. Because Chen Dao and Luo Heng had already gone back, there were not many people present, so she only cooked a few dishes. After the dishes were all arranged, Shengwan Wanrong looked around and asked, "Lung Shuang, where is Xiao Jiao? Why haven't I seen them yet?" Lung Shuang pondered for a moment and said, "Master should be in the courtyard. Then you go call Xiao Jiao and Mose over for dinner." Shengwan Wanrong smiled and sat down to rest. She poured a cup of tea and took a sip, preparing to wait for them to come over. "Yes." Lung Shuang responded and turned to walk out. On the other side, Hui Lang Xingyi, who was guarding outside the Fengjiu courtyard, did not say anything, but his eyes were brighter than usual. Yingyi only occasionally glanced at the main courtyard, as if waiting for the two masters to come out. Hui Lang, on the other hand, was staring straight at the main courtyard. His heart was itching with curiosity. Did Master eat the ghost doctor? He hadn't heard anything for the entire afternoon. Could it be that the two of them were taking a nap inside? Nothing at all? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, "Yingyi, do you think it's done?" After asking for a while, he didn't hear any response from Ying, so he turned his head and elbowed him. "I'm asking you a question." "I don't know," Yingyi said coldly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lung Shuang not far away, so he signaled him to look at the person. Seeing Lung Shuang, Hui Lang grinned and quickly stood in front of her. "Lung Shuang, why are you here? What's the matter?" Seeing Hui Lang standing in front of her, Lung Shuang frowned, glanced at Yingyi and asked, "Why are you two here? Is the Yama Lord also here?" "That's good. Madam prepared dinner and asked me to invite Master and the others over." She was about to walk forward when she was stopped again. Wait. Hui Lang looked at her with embarrassment. "Master and the others haven't come out yet. Don't go over and ruin things." "Ruin what?" Lung Shuang was startled and glanced at the courtyard. There were no two figures in the courtyard. Then were they in the room? Chapter 1635. Dressed in a black robe, Xianyuan Mose walked out with one hand behind his back and the other in front of his abdomen. When he saw the three people standing outside the courtyard, he asked, "Is something the matter?" At this time, his voice was lazy and magnetic, as if he had just woken up and tasted the sweetness of a young man. There was a trace of satisfaction between his brows that could not be concealed. Seeing his expression, Hui Lang, Ing Yi and Leng Shuang all had different expressions, especially Leng Shuang, who did not know what was going on. However, she did not think too much about it and just suppressed her doubts in her heart. She reported, "Madam has already prepared dinner and is inviting Yama Lord and Master to come and eat. Xiaojiu is still sleeping, let her sleep a bit more." Xianyuan Mose had just finished speaking when he heard Fengjiu's voice behind him. "I'm up, let's go together." Fengjiu lazily walked out of the room and rubbed her sore hands. At the same time, she angrily glared at the man who was smiling at her. This guy, she thought he would not be able to resist taking out his gun. She did not expect that in the end, the one who was tired to death was her 5 fingers. Rubbing her sore hands, she did not know what to feel in her heart. If it were another man, the raw rice would have been cooked long ago. But his heart moved, and in the end he still did not cross the last line of defense. She knew that he cherished her, but seeing him endure it like that, her heart could not bear it. Otherwise, her 5 fingers would not be tired and numb today. "Aren't you tired? How about I have them bring the food over?" He stepped forward and hugged her. Looking at her red dress, her black hair falling behind her, and her lazy and charming appearance, he could not help but want to hide her and not let anyone see her. "You also know how to feel tired? My hands are so sore." She leaned into his arms and complained in a low voice. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose's eyes flashed with a deep smile. He said in a low voice by her ear, "That only proves that your man's ability is too strong. You will have a happy sex life in the future." Hearing this, Fengjiu thought of the previous scene and could not help but blush. She rolled her eyes and pushed him away. "Leng Shuang, let's go." With that, she left with Leng Shuang. As he watched her walk forward, Xianyuan Mose let out a deep and magnetic laugh. His deep, smiling and tender gaze fell upon the red figure. He paused for a moment, then followed her footsteps with his hands behind his back. The two people's voices were lowered and Hui Lang and Ing Yi could only vaguely hear 1 or 2 sentences. However, seeing Master's satisfied expression, they could not help but guess, did Master really eat the ghost doctor? They went to the front to eat. During this time, Shangguan Wanrong saw that her hands were trembling and asked with concern. This made Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose both feel uncomfortable. In the end, they just made up an excuse. After eating, the two of them left in a hurry, preparing to go out for a stroll. In regards to this, Shangguan Wanrong was naturally very happy. Especially seeing that the two of them had such a good relationship as their mother, she was very happy. Chapter 1636. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose laughed softly, "All right." As the night deepened, the lanterns on the streets lit up and people came and went. When the two of them walked into the streets and blended into the crowd, the surrounding men and women couldn't help but look at them. It was because the man was domineering and the woman was beautiful. One in black and one in red, they were a perfect match. It was as if they were celestial beings who had walked down from the heavens and didn't belong to the mortal world. Because the surrounding people's eyes were following them closely, the two of them didn't walk for too long. After walking around the city once, they went to the base of Yen Dian's power. After a few more days, there was still no news from Feng Xiao. This made Fengjiu feel strange. Why was there no news? Did he not enter the city? That shouldn't be right. Until one afternoon, when she was resting on the roof with her eyes closed, she saw a figure in black robes walk out from the streets and stop in front of their courtyard. Seeing that person, she narrowed her eyes. That person looked to be in his 20s or 30s. He was tall and sturdy and was covered in dust. There was a colorful little bird perched on his shoulder. The more she looked at him, the more familiar he felt, especially that little bird. Fire Phoenix? She muttered softly, feeling a little surprised. She quickly got up and tapped the ground with the tip of her foot to jump over the wall of the courtyard. She landed in front of the man and stared at his smiling face. When she saw that familiar face, she could not help but open her mouth in disbelief. "Father?" "Xiaojiu, I didn't expect you to recognize father at a glance." "Ah, as expected of my daughter." Feng Xiao laughed loudly, his mellow voice carrying laughter. "On the way here he was saying that you definitely wouldn't recognize him." Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and flew to Fengjiu's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face. Fengjiu gently stroked Fire Phoenix's feathers with her fingers and smiled. Thank you, Fire Phoenix, for protecting my father on the way here safely. You're welcome. This is what I should do. The Fire Phoenix raised its head and stood on her shoulder, asking, You won't blame me for not listening to you and staying in the Phoenix dynasty as a guardian beast, right? How could that be? Grandpa and the others are still there. It's fine. She giggled before looking at her father and asked, Father, when did you become a martial god? No wonder the people in Yandian said they couldn't find any news about you. Haha, of course my strength has reached the martial god realm and my appearance has changed. Naturally, they won't be able to recognize me. With a bright smile, he told her about what had happened on the road and asked, That's right, how is your mother now? Is she all right? Father, don't worry. Mother is fine. We originally planned to go back, but we heard the news that you came here, so we waited for you here. We haven't heard from you these days, so Mother has been worried. If she sees you later, I think she'll be very happy. Fengjiu and Feng Xiao were chatting as they walked into the courtyard. Xinyuan Mose just happened to walk out. When he saw Fengjiu intimately leaning against a man, he couldn't help but frown. His gaze was fixed on the man's arm around her shoulder. Chapter 1637. However, just as he was about to step forward and test the man's skills, he heard Fengjiu's voice. Zay, my father is here. Look, isn't he like a different person? No wonder we haven't heard from him. Hearing Fengjiu's smiling words, Xinyuan Mose's face stiffened. For a moment, his expression was a little strange, but it returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, he always had a cold face. At this time, if one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't be able to see that he was different. Congratulations, Uncle Xiao, on becoming a martial god. He stepped forward and congratulated. His voice was as calm as usual, and no one could hear the abnormality from before. Hee, long time no see. How have you been? Feng Xiao stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. He said, Thank you very much. I know you've helped a lot. This is what I should do. He smiled and said to Fengjiu, Since Uncle Xiao is here, let's take him to see Aunt Rong first. Yes, father. Mother has been waiting for you for a long time. If she knew you were here, she would be very happy. Let's go, I'll take you to see her first. Fengjiu took his hand and led him inside. Hearing this, Feng Zhao's heart moved. He was a little expectant but also a little nervous. For a moment his heart beat uneasily. Wanrong was about to see her. He had forgotten about her for more than 10 years and let her bear everything alone. Every time he thought of this, guilt rose in his heart. Did she blame him? Did she blame him? He didn't know how he followed his daughter inside. He only knew that along the way people came out to greet him. His mind was muddled and he only knew that his heart was nervous. After turning a few small paths they came to a courtyard. Fengjiu stopped and didn't follow in. She said to her father beside her, Father, Mother is inside. You can go in. As soon as her voice fell, she retreated and walked with Xinyuan Mose to the courtyard in front. Lung Shuang in the courtyard saw them and retreated silently. Although she didn't recognize who they were, she tactfully didn't ask and quietly left when she saw that her master didn't come in and instead retreated. Feng Xiao stepped in. He walked lightly as if afraid of scaring her. As he walked, he looked at the elegant figure trimming the flowers and plants in the courtyard. Her exquisite and graceful figure, her silky smooth black hair, her simple and elegant dress, and her gentle and soft aura, all of them were familiar to him, and all of them made his heart skip a beat. It was as if he had returned to the moment when he first met her. Shengguan Wanrong, who had her back to him, didn't know that the person behind her was Feng Xiao. She thought that the person standing behind her was Lung Shuang. So, without turning her head, she said, Lung Shuang, bring the watering can over and water it. Hearing this, Feng Xiao stopped and looked around. His gaze fell on the watering can. He walked over and took the watering can, then walked forward and handed it to her. Shengguan Wanrong reached out to take it. However, when her gaze fell on the hand holding the watering can, she couldn't help but be startled. Instinctively she looked back. With this look, her entire person was stunned. Familiar eyebrows, familiar eyes, familiar face, familiar aura. Feng Xiao. Chapter 1638. Wanrong. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace. His voice was choked with emotion as he said, You've suffered. Shengguan Wanrong shook her head and hugged him tightly with both hands. It's good that you're here. I never thought I'd be able to see you again or see our daughter. Our daughter is truly outstanding. If it weren't for her, many things would have been impossible. The reason we're able to reunite today is also because of her. As Feng Xiao spoke, he held her hand and led her to the table in the courtyard. Looking at her husband in front of her, she had an indescribable feeling in her heart. After so many years of suffering, after so many years of enduring, she finally managed to wait for a day of reunion. I never thought that after so many years, with your memories of me sealed, you would still be able to single-handedly raise our daughter. I originally thought that you would definitely forget about me and marry someone else. Who would have thought that Xiao Jiu would tell me that you've been alone all these years? I'm glad that I've always been alone. Otherwise, how could I be worthy of your many years of waiting? He held her hand and said, Wanrong, our family will never be separated again. I'll bring you back to our home. Amen will never be separated again. She nestled into his embrace. Her heart that had been floating for so many years finally found a harbor to shore. In front, Fengjiu accompanied Xianyuan Mose as they walked in the front courtyard. As they strolled, she thought of the scene from before and asked with a smile, Did you not recognize my father when you saw him? Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose felt a bit uncomfortable. He looked away and said, I didn't recognize him. And then? I saw that you looked like you wanted to kill someone when you stared at my father. She smiled like a fox, her eyes shining as she stared at him. Were you jealous? Jealous of my father? No. Is that so? She raised her eyebrows and teasingly said, Why do I feel like it's not like that? Your father is here. Why don't we go see my father before we return to the Phoenix dynasty and discuss the marriage? He changed the topic, feeling that he had nowhere to hide under her teasing gaze. Hearing that, Fengjiu stopped joking and said, Then I'll tell them later and see what they plan to do. Tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll ask them what they think. Xianyuan Mose said, staring at her, I've collected a lot of good things to prepare for you as betrothal gifts. Whether it's the betrothal gifts or the wedding day, I'll do it in a grand manner, letting everyone know that your Fengjiu is married to me. Actually, you don't have to do that. After all, getting married is only a matter between the two of us. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Just do it normally. She knew that he had her in his heart and that he loved her deeply. That was enough. As for the other things, they were just for outsiders to see. To her, it didn't matter whether they existed or not. On the other side, Guan Shilin, who had heard that Feng Xiao had arrived, rushed back from the medicine shop. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose standing under a tree in the front yard. Seeing this, he didn't disturb them. Instead, he walked down another path, planning to ask Leng Hua first. However, not long after he walked down the other path, he met the siblings Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. Leng Hua, I heard that my foster father is here? Is it true? Chapter 1639. Hearing this, he nodded and smiled. It's good that you're here. This time, foster mother and Xiao Jiu can rest assured. He thought for a moment, then said, How about this? Let's not eat at home tonight. I'll book a restaurant outside and have a good meal outside. I'll go book it. Leng Hua said, then said to Guan Shilin, You just came back, so rest at home. Later you can meet with the patriarch. Here he changed the title from monarch to patriarch. After all, this was more appropriate. That's fine. Guan Shilin agreed and let him go first, then said to Leng Hua, Xiao Jiu and the others are in front. Let's go tell them. Thus he walked towards where Fengjiu and the others were. As the sky gradually darkened, Feng Xiao walked out of the courtyard with Shangguan Wanrong and met up with Fengjiu and the others in the front hall. After meeting and chatting with everyone for a few days, they sat in a carriage and went out to the restaurant. The restaurant Leng Hua booked was one of Yen Dian's businesses. In order to avoid being disturbed, they booked the entire second floor. They didn't eat in a side room, but sat on the second floor facing the window, where they could see the lively night scene on the street. As the dishes were served, they drank and ate while chatting. They asked about the situation at home as well as the Phoenix dynasty's current situation. Feng Xiao answered them one by one, telling them that everything was fine at home and that they didn't need to worry. Uncle Xiao, I'd like to invite you and Aunt Rong to the palace to meet with my imperial father to discuss the marriage. What do you think? Xianyuan Mo saw that the atmosphere was good, so he directly asked this question. He felt that now that Fengjiu's parents had been reunited, the next step should be to arrange their marriage. After all, the two of them had known each other for many years. Although they hadn't been engaged for long, the two of them liked each other very much. Since they were prepared to never let go of each other's hands, then getting married early would give them more time to be together. This is a must. You've been to our place and met our elders, but we haven't been able to visit your father. Since we're here, We naturally have to meet your father and discuss the marriage between you and Xiaojiu. At this point, Feng Zhao's voice paused, then he looked at Xinyuan Mo's and asked, Your imperial father doesn't object to your Xiaojiu's marriage, right? After all, the status of the Xinyuan dynasty was extraordinary and far from what their tiny Phoenix dynasty could compare to. If he looked down on them, it was also pardonable. Uncle Xiao, you can rest assured. My imperial father has already met Fengjiu and is very satisfied with her. He won't stop this marriage, Xinyuan Mo said, glancing at Fengjiu beside him. Even if his imperial father would stop it, he would still marry Fengjiu. He hoped that they would meet his imperial father not because of anything else, but because he valued Fengjiu. He hoped that their marriage would be blessed by the elders of both sides, and that she would be given all the etiquette that ordinary people would have when they got married. That's good. Feng Xiao nodded and said, If you've already taken care of the matters here, then we can set off to visit your imperial father in 2 days. Okay, I'll take care of it, Xinyuan Mo said with a smile, then he saw Fengjiu fill the wine cup in front of him. Chapter 1640. To Uncle Xiao and Aunt Rong, Xinyuan Mo said. After Fengjiu stood up, he also stood up. To adoptive father and adoptive mother. Guan Shilin laughed loudly and stood up with a glass of wine in his hand. To master and madam. Du Fan, Leng Hua and the others also stood up with wine glasses in their hands. Even Hui Lang and Ying Yi raised their wine glasses and looked at the two of them. Thank you everyone for this journey. As Feng Xiao said this, he and Shengguan Wanrong looked at each other. The two of them raised their wine glasses and gestured to everyone. After saying please, they drank the wine in one gulp. Sit down. Today, everyone can eat and drink to your heart's content. Don't be restrained. He said this with a smile and let everyone sit down so they could eat and drink freely. Father, mother, try this. Fengjiu put some food in their bowls in front of them. And this, father, you probably didn't eat much good food on the way here, right? Come eat more. Looking at the bowl full of meat dishes, Feng Xiao laughed loudly. Good, father will eat more. Don't worry. As he spoke, he put some light food in Shengguan Wanrong's bowl. Here, these are lighter. Try it. Seeing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but smile happily. She saw the joy between her parents' eyebrows, saw the joy that came from the bottom of their hearts, and saw the deep affection between their eyebrows that couldn't be hidden. Although the two of them had also experienced a lot of hardships, they were finally together again. In this way, even if they had suffered a lot before, it was all worth it. Can you fill your stomach just by looking? Xinyuan Mo's deep and magnetic voice drifted into her ears. She snapped back to her senses and saw that the bowl in front of her was already filled to the brim with her favorite dishes. What's more, the pair of chopsticks that were picking up food for her didn't stop and continued to stack up. She couldn't help but smile at the sight. She glanced sideways at him and happened to meet his deep, bottomless gaze. Seeing this, she also picked up her chopsticks and said with a smile, Of course, looking at it can't fill my stomach, but eating it can. As she spoke, she picked up a piece and ate. Seeing that everyone was looking at them, she smiled and said, Don't just look, eat. So, everyone laughed and chatted as they ate. The atmosphere suddenly became lively and relaxed. Some of the powers in the city were also paying close attention to the fact that they had booked the entire second floor of a famous restaurant in the city. After all, the name of the ghost doctor had gradually spread here, and the various powers in the city had naturally taken notice of the person called Fengjiu. Chapter 1641. On the street, Duan Mubai looked at the town and could not help but sigh. How bold was this Fengjiu? He had thought that he would run far away after rescuing Wanrong. Who knew that he would hide in a town not far from the Danyang sect? If Chen Dao and the others had not informed him, he would never have thought that they would be here. Because the Danyang sect had suffered heavy losses recently, everyone in the sect was in a state of panic. Even his family had some matters to attend to. However, when he saw that his father's body had recovered and his life was no longer in danger, he felt relieved. Let his elder brother handle the family matters. What was the family going to face? What had they lost? What were the potential dangers? These were not things that he could care about. After all, he was not the master of the family. If he interfered again, he was afraid that his elder brother would not be pleased. He just did not know where his little niece was now. When he thought of his little niece who had been forced to run away from home, he could not help but shake his head and sigh. He really did not agree with his elder brother's way of doing things. He only hoped that nothing had happened to his little niece outside. Otherwise, he was afraid that, Looking at the lively passers-by on the street, he went to the address that Chen Dao and the others had given him. He planned to see Wanrong before returning to the sect. However, when he arrived at the courtyard and knocked on the door, no one came to open it for a long time. He could not help but be startled and thought to himself, could it be that she had left? Seeing that there was no one in the courtyard, he went to the medicine shop. It was said that the owner of this medicine shop was the ghost doctor, and the ghost doctor was Fengjiu. Moreover, in a short period of time, many top-grade pills had flowed out from this small medicine shop. The ghost doctor's name had also spread along with the circulation of the pills. It could be said that all the major forces in the 8 great empires had taken notice of this place. Naturally, they had also investigated this person called the ghost doctor and knew that the ghost doctor had a close relationship with the black market. This was probably the reason why no one dared to openly snatch her away. Otherwise, for those large forces, if such an alchemy prodigy appeared and they failed to recruit him, they would kill him. If they couldn't get him, they naturally couldn't let other forces get him. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to become a threat to them. But it was also a good thing that this ghost doctor was smart enough. Other than that huge black market, she did not have any relations with other clans or powers. No matter who it was, they could buy pills or medicines from her, but the prerequisite was that they had the ghost doctor's pill or medicine tablet in hand. Otherwise, no matter how much money they had, they would not be able to buy what they wanted. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh inwardly. Sure enough, this was a strange person who set some strange rules. When Duan Mubai arrived at the medicine shop, he casually looked around and saw that this inconspicuous medicine shop was very simple both inside and outside. In fact, it was even more simple than an ordinary medicine shop. Such a place was actually a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. "Shopkeeper, where is the person in charge?" he asked a middle-aged man in his 40s who was picking herbs in the pharmacy. Other than the shopkeeper, there was only a waiter here to greet the customers. There was no sign of the Lung Hua or Du Fan that Chen Dao and the others had mentioned. Chapter 1642. Duan Mubai glanced at him, paused and said, "An old friend." Hearing that, the shopkeeper's expression changed slightly and he chuckled. "Our manager has gone out and said that he won't be back tonight. Why don't you come back tomorrow?" Hearing that, Duan Mubai knew that Fengjiu and the others had not left, so he nodded. "All right then. I'll come back tomorrow." Thus, he turned to leave without stopping. However, at this moment the shopkeeper asked again, "Please wait for a moment." The shopkeeper followed him out and asked Duan Mubai, "May I know your name? Tomorrow when our manager comes I can report to him on behalf of you." "My surname is Duan." He left after saying that. The next morning, when Du Fan was about to return to the medicine shop to take a look, he saw a man in white standing outside when he opened the door. After seeing that he was wearing the familiar robes of the Danyang sect, Du Fan's gaze swept down and landed on his waist token. "You are? Duan Mubai." He reported his name and looked at the person in front of him. "I'm Shangguan Wanrong's eldest senior brother. Fengjiu should be here too, right?" Hearing that, Du Fan nodded and stepped aside to let him in. "Please come in." He closed the door again and said, "Qin Dao and Luo Heng mentioned you before, so I know you too." "Oh right, I'm Du Fan." "I know." Duan Mubai replied, his gaze landing on the folding fan in his hand. Du Fan followed his gaze and glanced at the folding fan in his hand. He smiled and led him into the hall as he said, "My master hasn't woken up yet. As for madam, she drank a few cups of wine last night and probably won't wake up so early today. Why don't we do this? You sit in the hall for a while, I'll send someone to report and see if my master has woken up. Let them sleep. I can wait for them to wake up." Duan Mubai said as he walked into the hall and sat down. "I just came to take a look after receiving news from Chen Dao and the others. It's nothing urgent." Du Fan poured him a cup of tea and said, "Then you can sit here first. Feel free to walk around the mansion. I still have to take a look at the store, so I'll take my leave first." "Yes," Duan Mubai replied and took a sip of tea. Du Fan went outside and found Lung Hua. He told Lung Hua to greet the guests in the hall and then left. After Lung Hua found out that the person who came was Madam's eldest senior brother, he went to the kitchen to get some snacks and brewed a pot of tea to send to the hall. However, when he arrived at the hall, he didn't see anyone. "Didn't you say to sit in the hall?" He was a little surprised and put down the tray in his hand. Seeing that the teacups on the table were still warm, he knew that they hadn't gone far, so he went out to take a look. On the other side, after Duan Mubai walked out of the courtyard, he walked around and inadvertently walked to a training ground. He faintly heard the sound of fighting, so he walked towards the sound. He came to a stop not far from the training field and watched the two figures sparring in the field. Although it was just sparring, it was not difficult to see that the two of them were outstanding. Because their figures changed so quickly, he could not see their faces clearly. However, from the aura and strength of their bodies, he could tell that the two of them were extremely outstanding. Chapter 1643. He watched them quietly. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the two of them stopped. At this moment he could clearly see that both of them were wearing black robes. Their figures were similar, but the one in black robes was of a darker color, which made him appear more mature. When his gaze landed on the two of them, he noticed that their bone ages were different. One was a man in his 20s, while the other looked like he was in his 20s or 30s. However, his bone age was already in his 40s. Furthermore, his aura seemed to be more stable than the other man's. The one in the lighter robes is my master's sworn brother. His name is Guan Shilin. Lung Hua, who had appeared behind Duan Mu Bai at some point in time, said gently. Duan Mu Bai turned his head slightly to look at the young man standing beside him. This young man looked to be about the same age as his disciples. However, he had a gentle aura and did not seem like an ordinary guard or servant. You must be Lung Hua. It was not a question but a confirmation. There were not many unrelated people here. Chen Dao and the others had said that other than Du Fan, there was only Lung Hua and a woman called Lung Shuang. Lung Hua smiled gently. That's right. The people around Fengjiu are indeed not to be trifled with, Duan Mu Bai praised. I'm just my master's housekeeper. I'm the most ordinary and inconspicuous person here, Lung Hua said modestly. Duan Mu Bai smiled and asked, the one in the lighter robes is Fengjiu's sworn brother. Then what about that one? His gaze landed on Feng Xiao. He could sense an iron-blooded and intimidating aura from this person. Furthermore, his aura was sharp and threatening. He was definitely not to be trifled with. Lung Hua followed his gaze and his gaze landed on Feng Xiao. He smiled and said gently, the one in the darker robes is our master, Feng Xiao. He's also my master's father and Madame's husband. Hearing this, Duan Mu Bai's eyes flickered. His heart skipped a beat. He was a little stunned. Fengjiu's father? Wanrong's husband? At this moment he felt a little disappointed, as if he had lost something. His heart sank. So this man was the one she loved. He was the man she had been worried about. So they had been reunited. Thinking of this, his gaze involuntarily landed on Feng Xiao. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that this Feng Xiao was really outstanding. Whether it was his appearance, his aura, or his steady and iron-blooded aura, he was a dragon among men. Furthermore, he was a completely different type from him. At first glance, this Feng Xiao gave people the impression that he was an iron-blooded tough man. He was an expert with a sharp and intimidating aura. On the other hand, he was only an alchemist. Even though alchemists were respectable existences, he couldn't compare to him in terms of aura, and combat strength. Just as he was staring blankly, he suddenly saw a simple and elegant figure jump into his field of vision. On a small path on the other side of the martial arts field, Shengguan Wanrong slowly walked over with a bamboo basket in her hand. The two people in the field stopped when they saw her. Chapter 1644. Looking at the smile and gentleness on her face, he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. In the end, her gentleness did not belong to him. These days it was only his own wishful thinking. However, to be able to see that she was happy, this comforted him a little. After calming himself down, he suppressed the feelings he had for her in the bottom of his heart before he walked forward. When Lung Hua saw this, he revealed a smile and followed them to the training field. It wasn't until they were closer that he opened his mouth to speak. Master, Madam, Peak Master Duan is here. As soon as Lung Hua's voice was heard, Shengguan Wanrong, who was talking to Feng Xiao, was slightly stunned. She looked up and saw that it was indeed her eldest senior brother. Thus she walked forward with Feng Xiao. Eldest senior brother, why are you here? When Feng Xiao heard Wanrong say that it was her eldest senior brother, he sized up the person without batting an eyelid. His daughter had told him that several people in the Danyang sect were interested in Wanrong. I heard from Qin Dao and the others that you were here, so I wanted to come and see how you are doing, Duan Mu Mu said with a gentle smile. Duan Mu Bai said with a gentle smile. His gaze moved away from Shengguan Wanrong and landed on Feng Xiao. I really didn't expect to see the Feng master here. I'm really surprised. That's right. Before he came here, he didn't know that he would meet Wanrong's husband here, let alone such an outstanding man. However, seeing him so outstanding made him feel better. Hearing this, Feng Xiao laughed loudly. I also didn't expect to see the eldest senior brother that my madam mentioned here. I didn't notice you earlier. If there's anything I didn't greet you well, please don't take offense, Brother Duan. I won't. As Duan Mubai spoke, he looked at Shangguan Wanrong. Actually, I didn't come here for anything important. I just stopped by to see little junior sister. Little junior sister, how are you? Shangguan Wanrong revealed a gentle smile and said softly, Don't worry, eldest senior brother. Xiao Jiu's medical skills are very good. I'm fine now. That's good. He nodded. Seeing her like this, he knew that she was fine. Brother Duan, let's go to the front hall and have a chat. If we let Brother Duan stand like us, it would be impolite of us. Feng Xiao gestured for Duan Ling Tian to leave. Seeing this, Duan Mubai glanced at the two of them and followed him to the front hall. Guan Shilin held on to Leng Hua and waited for them to walk away before asking, Did Duan Mubai tell Xiao Jiu that he's here? Not yet. Master shouldn't have woken up yet. Leng Hua said. I see. Go ahead and greet them. I'll go to the backyard to take a look. As he spoke, he motioned for Leng Hua to quickly leave while he himself headed towards the rear courtyard. When he arrived at Fengjiu's courtyard, he saw Leng Shuang standing guard outside the door and beckoned her to come over. Young master, what's the matter? Leng Shuang asked. Is your master awake yet? Not yet. Is Xinyuan Mo's inside? Duan Mubai asked again. Hearing this, Leng Shuang paused for a moment before saying, No, Yama Lord is sleeping in his room. Chapter 1645. That Duan Mubai is here. I was just about to ask Xiao Jiu if she wanted to take a look. But since she hasn't woken up yet, then forget it. As he spoke, he waved his hand and turned to leave, preparing to go to the kitchen to find something to eat. Duan Mubai? Leng Shuang was slightly surprised. Wasn't that the current Three-Yang Peak Master of Danyang sect? According to Qin Dao and the others, after Three Yangzi died, Duan Mubai was elected as the Three-Yang Peak Master. He probably came here to see Mistress. Leng Shuang didn't wake Fengjiu up, and Fengjiu only woke up in the afternoon. When she opened the door and walked out, she saw Xinyuan Mo's and Guan Shilin playing chess in the courtyard. I'm not playing anymore. I won't lose to you if I play chess with you. Guan Shilin sighed. He felt that he was looking for trouble. He was clearly not his opponent, yet he still played chess with him. He hadn't won a single game since this morning. Xinyuan Mo's curled his lips and waved his hand nonchalantly, indicating for Leng Shuang to put away the chessboard. He then looked at Fengjiu, who walked out. You're awake? Are you hungry? I was awoken by hunger. When she said this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. I guessed that the ghost doctor would be awake soon. Look, I've brought the food over. Hui Lang came in from outside with a tray in his hands and placed the food on the table. Everyone else is having lunch, but the ghost doctor is having breakfast. Master said that since the ghost doctor has just woken up, she probably won't be able to eat, so he got someone to make some porridge. He grinned and retreated to the side. Thank you. She blinked at him, then heard Xinyuan Mo's voice. This is what he should do. What's there to thank me for? Hearing this, Hui Lang hurriedly nodded and replied, That's right, that's right. These are all things that I should do. Ghost Doctor, you are my mistress. Serving mistress is also our duty. Xinyuan Mo's expression softened a little when he heard the word mistress. He seemed to be very satisfied with this form of address. He poured a bowl of porridge for Fengjiu and placed it in front of her. Eat it while it's hot. When Fengjiu was about to eat, he saw Guan Shilin sitting next to him and smiling at them, so he asked, Brother, aren't you going to eat? I've used up a lot of energy. I need to eat lunch. This porridge can't fill my stomach. You can eat it. I'll go eat later. He smiled and said, Oh right, there's something else I want to tell you. Duan Mubai came, but he left an hour ago. It was foster father and foster mother who received him. Oh, what is he doing here? She asked curiously as she ate. What else could it be? He's definitely here to see foster mother. He laughed loudly and said, However, foster father accompanied him the entire time. I asked Leng Hua and he said that they chatted for a while. After that, Duan Mubai bid farewell and returned to the Danyang sect. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Thinking about it, Duan Mubai probably wanted to come and see her mother, but unexpectedly bumped into her father. That was why he didn't stay for long and left. That's good as well. Letting him meet her father would cut off his thoughts, so that he wouldn't always be thinking about her mother. Let's settle everything here today. We'll set off for the Xianyuan dynasty tomorrow. Xianyuan Mose said from the side as he helped Fengjiu get some side dishes. Fengjiu nodded. There's nothing else here. I'll let Leng Hua and Du Fan take care of the medicine shop, then we can leave. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.